Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 59. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
I'm Joyous Dead.
And I'm Shark Dead.
All right, so tonight we're back, and tonight we're doing another For Joyous's Information episode.
Yeah, these are awesome.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to learn something today. Always a good time.
Yeah, this is fun. But before we dive into that, I want to give a shout out to our listener, Eric. He brought something to my attention that somehow in my research I missed.
You missed something.
This is crazy. So
wow, okay.
One of the FBI agents that was doing the investigating into the toy box killer, apparently after watching hours and hours and hours of the videos of everything he did to his victims, this woman, some reports say she walked outside and shot herself, and other reports say she went home to her house and shot herself.
Holy hell.
That is awful. What a horrible job to have.
Yes, I agree. And her name was Agent Patty Rust. And like I said, the reports are mixed. Like half say she did it immediately, others say she went home and suffered through it. But it was just one of those things that I was like, I wanted to kind of cut back into the main episode, but then I was like, nah, let's just post it here. Let's talk about it here. Crazy.
Wow, that's so tough. I mean, first responders, first of all, their job is difficult to begin with and dangerous, but then, you take it home too, all the stuff that you see.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I guess that's part of the job, like that's why so many of them are prone to suicidal thoughts and so many of them are, have PTSD.
Yeah, and I know it's a big problem for people whose job it is to monitor even social media websites and to take down stuff that breaks community guidelines, because people will post stuff and somebody has to look through all the things. It's devastating to mental health.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you're right. I didn't even think of that because I would assume most people wouldn't try to post anything crazy to social media, but you're right. People do every day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I could not look at child pornography. If, you had to review that for any type of job, including law enforcement, I would just say no. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know that I could either. And watching sexual assaults wouldn't be something I'd want to sit through either. So, yeah, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, very true.
All right, so tonight we are doing John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. Oh, I've been looking forward to this.
So, Joyous, if you had to take a guess, what would you say he's famous for?
This is my favorite part. I love when I have to guess. John Wayne Gacy. I'm going to guess that he killed a shitload of people.
Okay.
Well, that's obvious.
Like,
They're serial killers, right?
Yep, a serial killer. It sounds like kind of an old-timey name. So I'm going to place this as the murders happening in like the 60s.
Okay.
But he was like a movie star.
Well,
yeah, John Wayne. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what my brain is associating. So there's and then I'm going to guess geographic location. I feel like that name is giving me Midwest.
Okay.
So that's my guess.
Well, I'll give
you. But actually, I know nothing.
I will give you one additional clue, even though at this point you've made a bigger guess than I thought you were going to, which is cool. He was also known as the Killer Clown.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, that's awful. It feels like the origin of like why people have clown phobias. So I feel like it must have been the book must have been inspired by this.
That's entirely possible, but we'll get into it.
And that's like Stephen King, active in the 80s. So you know what? I stand by my guess.
Okay. Well, your guess is more accurate than your Bundy one was, so I'll give you that.
Yeah, my Bundy one was terrible. I got that so wrong.
Yes. Now, I guess Shark Dead, because I know you're also not as familiar with a lot of these cases. Are you familiar with John Wayne Gacy?
Good question. I'm familiar with the name. I've obviously heard the name before, and that he murdered a shit ton of people, like Joyous said. But I don't know all the facts. My guess would be he might have been the person in California that broke into a lot of houses and killed women and so forth. But I could be wrong, and I'm really looking forward to finding out.
Okay. So I'm going to say that the person who breaks into California and, that's like eight serial killers in California. So, but
True.
the two biggest ones with that name would have been the Golden State Killer or the Night Stalker, and we'll get to both of those eventually. Okay, so with that said, Joyous, you were dead on. This is Chicago in December of 1978.
Okay, I said, what did I say? Did I say
You
60s?
said the Midwest in the 60s, yes.
I was
So
pretty close.
you were pretty close. So it's December of 1978, and police finally received the search
Oh my God, the
warrant.
blizzard of 78.
No, that's up here.
Oh, I just figured it was a big blizzard. Listen, I wasn't alive.
No, I was very young.
Yeah.
So police finally received the search warrant they needed. They were looking for a missing teenage boy, and they had initially hoped that they'd find him alive at the home of John Wayne Gacy. However, that hope had faded by the time that they got the search warrant.
Ugh.
Investigators went into the crawl space below Gacy's house,
Ooh.
literally crawling through mud, and began digging. They found human remains, but they had been there for far longer than the teenage boy had been missing.
Oh no.
So
I don't like crawl spaces either.
No, that's creepy as hell. So
Talk about jobs I couldn't do. Yeah.
So they were shocked, but they kept digging, and they found another body, and then another, and then another, and then another.
Oh no.
The investigator at the time is quoted in having yelled back up through the crawl space, "This place is full of kids."
Oh God.
Yeah. So this is the case of John Wayne Gacy.
My
Okay,
dear
so that
God,
makes
that's a
sense.
nice
Kid
little
killer.
teaser to start
Wow.
off with.
Yeah, I started off towards the end because that moment is the most fucked up moment, in my
Oh,
opinion.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
by far.
Okay, so John Wayne Gacy was born in Chicago on March 17th, 1942. He was the second of three children and the only son of John Stanley Gacy and Marion Elaine Robison. Gacy was close to his mother and two sisters, but had a difficult relationship with his father, who was an alcoholic and verbally and physically abusive to his family.
Well, yep. That's not going to be a good relationship.
No.
See a common thread here.
It's funny how many times we hear these stories, yes. So the elder Gacy frequently belittled his son, calling him, quote, dumb and stupid, unquote, and comparing him unfavorably to his sisters, which at the time was probably more insulting than it would be today.
It sucks either way to be compared to your siblings. Yeah.
Now, his mother tried to shelter him from his father's abuse, which resulted in accusations that he was a sissy and a mama's boy and would probably, quote, grow up queer, unquote.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
He's just building that resentment even more and more and more.
Well, in 1949, Gacy's father whipped him after he and another boy were caught sexually fondling a young girl,
Ooh. As he should.
as he should. Now that
The
same
father, obviously. If it wasn't clear from what I said.
no, yeah, we
Oh,
understand.
no, we got that one.
So-
Okay. Just being clear.
So that same year, according to Gacy, a family friend began to occasionally molest Gacy himself. Now, Gacy never reported that to his father because he was afraid his father would blame him.
Ugh.
Now, despite their challenging relationship, Gacy loved his father, but felt that he was never good enough in his father's eyes. Now, understanding that Gacy, keep in mind, Gacy was overweight and unathletic as a child. And so, like, people like his father who were like manly men in the 50s, they didn't want that in their sons.
Yeah. Gender roles are
Yeah, brutal.
gender rolling.
So in 1960, at the age of 18, Gacy became involved in politics, working as an assistant precinct captain for the local Democratic Party. This led to more criticism from his father, who called him a patsy.
Ugh.
Oh,
Just
geez.
can't do anything right.
Go ahead.
And the father has no guilt or anything like that. He just, I mean, I feel guilty if I take somebody's parking spot, you know, if I'm there like a second earlier. And he has no guilt whatsoever doing all this to his son.
No,
Nah,
and
he's a fucking asshole.
I was going to say my father had no guilt or problem with the stupid shit he said to me either. So there's that. So that's,
Yeah, I could say the same for my dad, too.
So that same year, Gacy's father bought him a car. He kept the vehicle title in his name until Gacy had fully paid for it, which took several years. Now, whenever Gacy decided not to do what his father told him to do, his father would confiscate the keys. So in April of 1962, Gacy went out and had an extra set of keys made, but this pissed his father so off that he removed the distributor cap of the vehicle and kept it away from him until he had made amends.
Is that like something you need to drive?
Yeah, you need the distributor cap. If you don't have that, your car's not going to turn over.
There you go.
Back then.
Yeah, back then. It's probably
Yeah,
very
they don't
different
make them
now.
anymore.
Yeah. So literally hours after his father replaced the cap, Gacy left home and drove to Las Vegas with only $136 to his name, hoping that he could live with his cousin. Gacy worked there in the city's ambulance service before being transferred to work in a mortuary.
It's a hell of
Oh.
a transition.
Yeah, it's
Huh.
it's
Well,
set-
it makes sense. Like EMT to mortuary, you're already dealing with the bodies low key. So
That's true. But yeah, this is setting up a whole different thing, though. He worked as a mortuary attendant for 3 months, observing morticians embalming bodies, and he occasionally served as a pallbearer. He slept on a cot behind the embalming room, and he later confessed that one evening, while alone, he climbed into one of the coffins of a male teenager, and
Ugh.
he laid there embracing and caressing the body.
Oh no.
So it's at this point that he basically scares the shit out of himself, and he returns home. Yeah.
Okay, well, at least some part of him was like, "This is wrong. We got to stop."
Right. Well, he's recognizing it's different. Yes.
Some self-awareness.
Some.
It won't last.
It won't last.
Spoiler alert.
Shortly thereafter, Gacy enrolled at Northwestern Business College despite having failed to complete high school. He graduated in 1963 and took a management trainee position at the Nunn Bush Shoe Company. It's a weird name for
A what?
shoes. Nunn, like Nunn, Bush, as in like George W. Nunn.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that name.
Yeah,
Well, he's on the up and up. Like I would think here, like he's, getting his shit together. But obviously, it doesn't go like that.
it does for a little bit. So in 1964, the company transferred him to Springfield, Illinois to work as a salesman and eventually promoted him to department manager. In March of that year, he became engaged to a woman named Marlon Myers, who was a coworker. During their courtship, Gacy joined the local JCs, which is a term used for the United States Junior Chamber, which is like the Chamber of Commerce kind of thing. It was that year that he had his second homosexual experience. According to Gacy, a colleague at the JCs kind of gave him a lot to drink one night and then invited him to spend that evening on his sofa. The colleague then performed oral sex on him while he was drunk. Gacy and Marlon...
Hold on, right? Just want to clarify for a second. I wouldn't even call that like a homosexual experience. That's sexual assault 100%. Like that wasn't him being gay.
Well, it's a little bit of both because Gacy is gay. He just hasn't accepted it yet. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, I guess.
We'll get to that. And this is also his recounting, so it's really tough to say what really happened.
Very true.
So Gacy and
But it
Marlon...
doesn't sound like he had a choice in the matter.
No, he was certainly not given a choice. But again, well, I will get into this later, but that's the exact same method he uses on some of his victims later.
Ugh.
So
That's fucking
Damn.
awful.
yeah, so he either learned that from this experience or he's full of shit and it happened naturally and this is just his way of taking away responsibility.
Right. Like this is his narrative he's made for himself.
Exactly. So Gacy and Marlon married in September of 1964. Marlon's father subsequently purchased 3 KFC restaurants in Waterloo, Iowa. The couple moved there so Gacy could manage the restaurants with the understanding that they would live in Marlon's parents' former home. The offer was lucrative as Gacy would receive $15,000 a year, which the equivalent today is $144,000 a year.
Okay, damn, lucrative.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he would also get a share of the restaurant's profits. Once he was there, Gacy opened up a club in his basement where his employees could come and drink alcohol and play billiards.
Yeah, my club that's in my basement.
Yeah, it's instantly questionable, but it was the
Yup.
60s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although Gacy employed teenagers of both genders, he socialized only with the younger men.
Hmm.
Gacy gave many of them alcohol before he made sexual advances on them, and if they rebuffed him, he would claim that his advances were either jokes or a test of their morals.
What the fuck, dude?
Wow.
So he does like to create his own narrative.
Exactly. That's why, as much as we were saying about the other thing, it may not have been non-consensual.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he did not tell his wife about cuddling with somebody in a morgue.
No, he wouldn't tell anybody about that until after he was apprehended.
Yep.
So Gacy's wife gave birth to their son in February of 1966 and a daughter in March of 1967. Gacy later described this period of his life as quote-unquote perfect and that he had finally earned his father's approval. When Gacy's parents visited him in July of 1966, his father privately apologized for all the abuse he had inflicted, shook Gacy's hand, and told him he was wrong about him.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How? That's rare. I feel like when does that happen?
Well,
That takes a lot.
Well, the sad part is his father is, admitting that he's wrong, but at the same time, he's admitting he's wrong about a facade.
It's a
true.
fake life.
And it's only going to get worse, obviously. In Waterloo, Gacy joined the local JC's chapter, regularly offering extended hours to the organization in addition to the 12 to 14-hour days he was putting in at the restaurants. At meetings, Gacy often provided free fried chicken and insisted on being called Colonel.
Oh,
geez.
okay,
Oh my
weird guy.
God.
Yeah, it's really fucked up. He and other Waterloo JCs were deeply involved in drug abuse, pornography, hiring sex workers, and wife swapping.
That's just a lovely combination right there.
It's,
Sounds like a lovely order of the JCs right there.
I was going to say, like, you when you hear these things like Junior Chamber of Commerce kind of thing, you think of respectable people, and then you hear this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a facade for them to go out and do the crap they want to do, and they do it under the guise of having some type of like Mason order or something.
Right. It's a guy's
Yeah, I mean, in
club.
my mind, those kinds of organizations do not have any bearing on the quality of their members.
Exactly.
I wouldn't necessarily expect them to be respectable just because they're businessmen, Sometimes the opposite.
100% agree with you. Yep. So although Gacy was considered by many to be ambitious and like to kind of talk himself up, the JCs did hold him in high regard for all his fundraising work. In 1967, he was named the Outstanding Vice President and served on a board of directors. Sorry?
Once again, another pattern we see with a bunch of these guys.
Yep.
They do the public getting their face out there and being the star child.
Yeah, the one everyone says, no way he could do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
But in August of 1967, Gacy sexually assaulted a 15-year-old boy named Donald Voorhees Jr., the son of a local politician and fellow JC member.
Oh, well, that's fucked up and stupid.
Yep. In March of 68, Donald Voorhees Jr. told his father that Gacy had sexually assaulted him. Voorhees Sr. immediately informed the police, who arrested Gacy and charged him for performing oral sex on Donald Jr. and also charged him with the attempted assault of a 16-year-old named Edward Lynch.
Damn. I feel like it's early in the story for him to already be getting arrested and charged from what we usually do.
Yeah, this is an interesting twist and turn, this case. So Gacy claimed that Donald had offered himself to him and that he had, quote, acted out of curiosity, unquote. But his story wasn't believed, and Gacy was convicted of sodomy on December 3rd and sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Oh,
That
damn.
gets you 10 years.
Back in the
Wow.
60s it did, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And it's
in the
just
Midwest.
sodomy, like not assault.
So that's,
I guess I mean at the end of the day that was just the you're gay charge.
yeah, that's basically what that is. And instead of charging him for assault on a minor, they're hitting him with you're gay.
Right, which is honestly probably a bigger punishment, which is doubly fucked up.
Very much so, yes. So the same day that he was sentenced, Gacy's wife petitioned for divorce, requesting that she be awarded their house, property, sole custody of their 2 children, and alimony.
Good for her.
Yep. The court.
Now, it blows my mind. Obviously, you can't see it, in the beginning, but the fact that a lot of these guys were married, it just, I don't know. There's
It's a
something
beard, baby.
that...
It's common.
How good they are at hiding it. Yeah. So
Also, bisexual people exist.
yes, they do. 100%. And yet somehow they didn't want to know that back in the day.
It's true. How could we possibly believe in that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a myth. So the court ruled in his wife's favor, and the divorce was finalized in September of 1969. Gacy would never see his first wife or children ever again.
Thank God.
Yeah,
Oh,
good for
crud.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, good for them.
During his incarceration, Gacy rapidly acquired a reputation as a model prisoner. Within months of his arrival, he had risen to the position of head cook. He also joined the inmate JC chapter and increased its membership from 50 to 650 men in less than 18 months.
Holy
What the fuck?
crud.
Yeah, this guy's charismatic as fuck.
Yeah, clearly.
And it's all a lie.
So Gacy secured an increase in the inmates' daily pay, and in the prison mess hall, he supervised several projects to improve conditions for inmates, including the installation of a mini golf course.
Wow.
That's awesome.
He was presented with a Distinguished Service Award for his efforts within the inmate JC chapter in February of 1970. Just so,
He's really trying to get out on good behavior, huh?
which he will. Good call. But however, in June, this is going to go back a little bit, but in June of 1969, he was denied parole. He started preparing for his second parole hearing, and in May of 1970, by May of 1970, he completed 16 high school courses and obtained his diploma.
Wow. He's
Yeah.
really, the time in prison is doing him good.
It is, actually. Unfortunately, they didn't keep him there.
Yeah.
On Christmas Day of 1969, Gacy's father died from cirrhosis. When informed of his father's death, Gacy reportedly collapsed to the floor sobbing. He requested for supervised, compassionate leave to attend his funeral, but that was denied.
Oof.
I wonder if that was an act too, if he really cared.
It's tough to say. I mean, the problem is with those abusive kind of relationships is sometimes you really want that approval, and
Right.
you really do care.
Yeah.
Yeah, you care more than you should.
Yeah, good. You're always seeking that approval.
Yeah. So Gacy was granted parole with 12 months of probation on June 18th of 1970, having only served a year and a half of his 10-year sentence.
That's absurd.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. That's insane that you're even eligible for parole that fast.
Again, it's because of the crime, though.
Yeah, he probably got lucky, because if he got, charged with sexual abuse of a minor, then, first of all, that's not looked too good in prison.
Correct.
And second of all, maybe he wouldn't have been paroled as early.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree with you on that one. So the conditions of his probation included a nightly curfew and that Gacy had to relocate to Chicago to live with his mother. He arrived in Chicago by bus on June 19th, and shortly after he got a job as a short order cook. which makes sense considering what he had been doing the last year and a half and plus the KFC before that. On February 12th of 1971, Gacy was charged with sexually assaulting a teenage boy who claimed that Gacy had lured him into his car at the Greyhound bus station in Chicago and driven him home, where he had attempted to force the boy into sex.
Ugh.
The court dismissed this because the boy failed to appear at court.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That's awful.
On June 22nd, Gacy was arrested and charged with the aggravated sexual battery and reckless conduct in response to a complaint filed against him by a young man claiming that Gacy had flashed him a sheriff's badge and lured him into his car to perform oral sex.
It's insane that he
twisted.
has already gone to prison for this and he's still doing it.
He's no longer in the same state. That happened in Iowa, and this is happening in Chicago.
But he was on probation, wasn't he?
Correct, and he's reporting back to Iowa, but somehow Illinois is not telling Iowa what he's doing.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, before computers and everything.
Yeah, they didn't talk.
BCE, before computer era.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those charges were dropped because the kid who was pressing charges against him tried to blackmail him.
What?
Yeah.
What?
The kid made the mistake of trying to extort money from Gacy, and Gacy told the court, and that was it. It was all over.
Yeah, that was a real dumb move.
So with the approval of his probation officer, Gacy began working evenings on a construction contract while he worked as a cook during the day. At this point, it's 1971, and he's established a part-time construction business called Painting, Decorating, and Maintenance Contractors, or PDM for short. Gacy's parole ended on October 18th of 1971, and a month later, the records of his criminal convictions in Iowa became sealed for some reason.
What?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy.
So with financial assistance from his mother, Gacy bought a ranch house in Norwood Park in Illinois. He would live there until he was arrested in December of 78, and according to Gacy, all of his murders were committed in that house. Gacy was active in his local community and always helpful towards his neighbors. He willingly loaned his construction tools. He plowed snow for them, cleared their walks and driveways free of charge. In August of 71, shortly after Gacy and his mother moved into that house, he became engaged to a woman named Carol Hoff, whom he had dated briefly back in high school. Carol had 2 young daughters from a previous marriage, and she moved into Gacy's home.
No.
Well, I guess I'm glad it's not 2 young sons.
Agreed. Gacy's first known murder happened on January 3rd of 1972. According to Gacy's account, following a family party the previous evening, he drove to the Civic Center in the early morning hours to look at ice sculptures that were on display there. He then convinced 16-year-old Timothy McCoy from the Chicago bus station to get into his car. Timothy was on his way to his father's home in Omaha, Nebraska, and he had told Gacy that the bus to Nebraska wasn't actually due to leave until noon the next day.
Oh, so the kid's probably freezing.
Freezing, nowhere to go, far from home, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So Gacy offered to take him around on a sightseeing tour of Chicago, and he drove him around and then said, hey, you know what, let's go back to my house, you can spend the night, and I'll get you back to the station in time to catch this bus.
Yeah, and there's such a big gap of time there that it'd be impossible to trace the poor kid.
Yep. Especially back then. Yeah.
When something's too good to be true, it's not true.
This is now, everything that's I'm about to describe is, of course, 100% what Gacy claims happened. Gacy says that he woke up early that next morning to find this kid standing in his bedroom doorway holding a knife. Gacy,
the fuck?
Then,
right. This is Gacy's lies.
Gacy then jumped from the bed, and the kid raised both his hands in kind of like a gesture of oh, wait, what the fuck? Accidentally cutting Gacy's arm. Gacy quickly disarmed him, banged his head against the wall, and kicked him into a dresser. At this point, the kid starts fighting back, kicks Gacy in the stomach, which caused him to start doubling over. Gacy then grabbed the kid, wrestled him to the floor, took the knife, and stabbed him repeatedly in the chest.
Okay, that's a bit of an escalation, buddy.
Right. As the kid lay dying, Gacy claimed that he got up and washed the knife in his bathroom, and when he went into the kitchen, he saw that the kid had made him breakfast.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, that he had set the
No.
table. He had set the table for two, and apparently walked into Gacy's room to wake him, absent-mindedly forgetting that he was carrying a knife.
Oh,
Jeez.
This is how Gacy claims.
it's weird that he's admitting all of this. It's just weird.
Well, this is after his capture. And he, like a lot of these narcissistic serial killers,
Think that they're smarter than the investigators.
Yeah, they loved the attention. They loved talking about it. But we're going to get into something interesting with Gacy towards the end. So at this point, Gacy buried this kid in the crawl space underneath his house and later covered his grave with a layer of concrete. That's going to be kind of the MO. And I'm going to talk about, as we're talking about his victims, his entire house had a crawl space underneath it. It didn't really have a basement. So we're going to talk about, when I talk about where he put bodies, you'll see how extensive this was. So Gacy, immediately after killing this kid, said he felt totally drained, yet noted that having stabbed him and listening to the sounds he made as he gasped for air made him experience a mind-numbing orgasm.
What the
Ew.
fuck?
Yep.
What?
He added that, quote, "That's when I realized that death was the ultimate thrill," unquote. Yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
Wow.
So Gacy and Carol got married on July 1st, 1972.
Oh, yeah, that's still going on, isn't it?
Yeah, he has a whole life. Yeah.
And she's living in the house with him and she's not noticing any of this?
She obviously wasn't home at that time, but yes, she would be living in the house during some of this.
Terrifying.
His mother moved out of the house shortly before they got married. And by mid-1973, Gacy quit his job as a cook and committed full-time to his PDM construction business.
Oh, so it's less suspicious that he has all this concrete.
So in 1973, Gacy and a teenage employee traveled to Florida to view property that Gacy wanted to buy.
Uh-oh.
While there, Gacy raped the employee in their hotel room.
Oh, that's so awful.
After returning to Chicago, this employee later drove to Gacy's house and beat the shit out of him in his front yard.
Let's
What?
fucking go.
Yeah, that's
Holy shit.
fucking awesome.
Let's fucking go.
Gacy told his wife that the attack was because he refused to pay the kid for poor quality work.
Oh, my God.
Damn.
Making something up again.
So Gacy said he committed his second murder around January of 1974, and this victim unfortunately remains unidentified. He was strangled and placed in Gacy's closet before burial. Gacy later stated that the bodily fluids from this victim leaked from his mouth and nose and stained his carpet. So Gacy began regularly stuffing rags or the victim's own underwear or socks into their mouth to prevent leakage going forward.
Ew.
I mean, it's funny how they learn from the tasks, though.
Yeah.
From 1974 through 1978, Gacy still hosted parties at his house. Like, he'd have these themed annual parties. These events were attended by upwards to 400 people, including local politicians and business associates. By 1975, PDM, his company, had expanded so rapidly that Gacy was working up to 16 hours a day.
Damn.
And it was at this time that Gacy told his wife that he was bisexual.
Well, there it goes.
After the couple had sex on Mother's Day of that year, however, he informed her that that would be the last time they would ever do so.
What the fuck?
Wow.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't.
I'd be like, okay, I guess I'll go.
Yeah, like, okay, divorce.
Yeah, what? So he began spending most of his evenings away from home, only to return in the early morning hours with the excuse that he had been working late. Carol observed Gacy bringing teenage boys into the garage in the early morning hours and also found gay pornography and men's wallets and IDs inside the house.
And she didn't do anything? Like, what?
I mean, you got to remember that this is like at the beginning of serial killers. Like we didn't have them the way we do. Like we don't talk about them the way we do today. So she had no frame of reference for what that might mean. She probably assumes his lovers are just leaving shit behind.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So-
but she's still like living in that house with him and really not being his wife.
Correct. Which again, I don't know how the fuck you deal with that.
Right. Well, I guess like maybe she doesn't have another option.
In May of 75, Gacy hired a 15-year-old named Anthony Antonucci. 2 months later, he went to Anthony's house knowing the teenager had injured his foot. He brought a bottle of wine that, of course, he served to this kid, and then they watched heterosexual porn films before Gacy started wrestling with Anthony and got him to the floor and tried to handcuff his arms behind his back.
Oh my fucking God. Ugh.
However, one of the cuffs was loose, and Anthony was able to free himself while Gacy had left the room. When Gacy returned, Anthony, who was a high school wrestler, started grappling with him again, had obtained the keys to the cuffs, and managed to get Gacy's hands cuffed behind his back.
Damn, go off, kid.
Gacy started threatening Anthony, but then realized that wasn't working, and he calmed down, and he promised to leave if he would just uncuff him.
Mm.
Anthony agreed, and Gacy left.
Oh, I'm shocked, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Anthony did continue to work for PDM for the next 9 months after this.
What?
I don't get that either. But Gacy made no further attempts to assault him. Fucking crazy.
He might not have wanted to tell his parents, because of.
Yeah, that's true. He probably have been like,
Yeah.
"Why did you quit your job?" kind of thing, But
Right.
Yeah,
like,
he could have been
the
embarrassed.
Shame of reporting something like that.
yeah.
Right.
So Gacy entered the local Democratic Party politics, initially offering use of his employees to clean the party headquarters at no charge. He was rewarded with an invitation to serve at the Norwood Park Township Street Lighting Committee, subsequently earning him the title of precinct captain. So he's still playing the local game here.
Dang.
Getting his name out there.
This next part blows my motherfucking mind. In 1975, Gacy was appointed director of Chicago's annual Polish Constitution Day Parade. And through this work, Gacy met and was photographed with the then First Lady, Rosalind Carter.
Whoa.
Holy
Wow.
shit.
Yeah. There's literally a photo out there of him standing next to her wearing a pin that has an S on it that indicates that he had special clearance to be near the First Lady.
That's
Crazy.
crazy.
Yeah. So
Wow. I knew nothing about this case. This is very, very enlightening just to learn about it.
yeah, it's fucked up. It really is. And the crazy part is after he was caught, this event later came back to embarrass the Secret Service. Obviously.
Well,
Yeah, I
yeah,
get
no
that.
kidding.
It's so fucking funny, though. A serial killer standing right next to the First Lady of the United States. How
Insane.
fucked up. Yeah. So on July 31st, 75, John Bakevich, who was 18 years old and an employee at PDM, disappeared. John's car was later found abandoned with his jacket and wallet inside with the keys still in the ignition. The day before his disappearance, John had confronted Gacy over outstanding back pay. Another trend with Gacy.
Mm.
John's father called Gacy, who claimed he would be happy to help search for his son and was sorry that his son had run away.
Ugh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We've heard that phrase way too often.
Mm-hmm.
When questioned by police, Gacy said John and two of his friends had arrived at his house demanding the overdue pay, but that they had reached a compromise and all three of them had left. Over the following 3 years, John's parents called the police more than 100 times, urging them to investigate Gacy further, but of course they never did.
That's oh my God. And they never did. That sucks.
Yeah.
Gacy later admitted to encountering John exiting his car, waving to attract his attention. According to Gacy, John approached him saying, I want to talk to you. And Gacy invited John into his car and then back to his home, ostensibly to settle this debt. At his home, Gacy offered John a drink and then conned him into allowing his wrist to be cuffed behind his back.
Girl, what do you
Oh,
con- how do
God.
you con someone into that?
So this is interesting. This is an interesting little tactic, and it's kind of brilliant. So what Gacy would do is he would say, "Hey, you want to see a magic trick?" And he would put his
Oh,
he
goodness.
would put his hands in fake cuffs for, like, magicians. And then he'd be like, "Look, da 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 da," and he would show him how to take them off. And then he would say, "Do you want to try it?" And then he would put real cuffs on them.
Oh, God.
Wow.
That's evil and clever.
It's so, yeah, exactly. It's brilliant and seriously fucking diabolical.
Yes.
Imagine the moment you realize that you fucked.
Every one of those kids died in fucking terror. That much we can say.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Gacy later confessed that he sat on the kid's chest for a while before he started strangling him.
Oh, my God.
Weird.
Yeah. He stowed John's body in his garage, intending to bury the body later in the crawl space, but his wife and stepdaughters returned home earlier than expected. So Gacy
Whoopsie.
Yep. So Gacy buried John under the concrete floor of a tool room extension to his garage, where he had later intended to dig a drain. In October of 1975, after a heated argument, Carol finally asked Gacy for a divorce.
It's about damn time.
For real.
Though
About damn time.
So he agreed, and by mutual consent, they continued to cohabitate until February of 1976. And on March 2nd, their divorce was finalized. I'm jumping a little bit ahead because I'm going to cut back a little, but I just wanted to kind of clear that up. His wife and her daughters are going to get the fuck out of here.
Okay, that's good.
So in late 1975, Gacy joined the Clown Club and created his own characters named Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown,
Oh, no.
creating his own makeup and costumes. He described Pogo as a happy clown, where Patches was a more serious character.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh, man. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's so ridiculous.
It is so ridiculous.
How about create a podcast or something like that, not a clown club?
Right? I
Well,
mean,
that's just what men do now.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
podcast didn't exist back then.
that's true.
True.
Oh, man. So Gacy seldom earned money for his performances and later said that acting as a clown allowed him to, quote, regress into childhood, unquote. He performed as both Pogo and Patches at numerous local parties, political functions, charitable events, and children's hospitals.
No, not the children's hospitals.
Yep. Gacy's voluntary public service as a clown throughout the years is what led to his moniker of the Killer Clown.
Hold on. Public service as a clown?
Because he was going to children's hospitals, yeah.
A volunteer clown.
Yeah. So here's
Fucking weird.
And this gave him access to all kinds of, in his mind, fresh meat.
Yeah, I suppose so. But the interesting thing here is there aren't really any reports of him killing too many people dressed as a clown.
Interesting.
It's implied that maybe he put on the costume for some of the victims, but it's not really confirmed. So the killer clown aspect was just the weirdness that he dressed as a clown here, but there's no real evidence that he was dressed as a clown during most of, if any, of the murders.
Right, and it also wouldn't exactly appeal to his MO.
Right, exactly.
He's going for teenagers, not children.
Correct. Although Gacy remained gregarious and civil-minded, several of his neighbors began to notice changes in his behavior after the divorce, including seeing him keeping the company of young men, hearing his car arrive or depart in the early morning hours, and seeing lights on at his house in really weird hours, all night long kind of thing.
Weird.
One neighbor later recalled that for several years they would hear muffled high-pitched screaming, shouting, and crying that repeatedly awoke her and her son.
and I hope we called the
I was
police
going to
about
say,
these
how do we
things.
not do or say anything?
I don't know why they never called the police. Doesn't make sense. Maybe they thought he was watching TV.
Okay.
I know I would have called the police, but he got away with it for way too long. So 1 month after his divorce was finalized, Gacy abducted and murdered 18-year-old Darrell Sampson. He was last seen in Chicago on April 6, 1976. Gacy buried him in the crawl space under his dining room with a cloth lodged in his throat.
Oh.
On May 14th, 15-year-old Randall Reffitt disappeared shortly after returning home from a dental appointment. Hours after Randall was last seen by his family, 14-year-old Samuel Stapleton vanished as he walked home from his sister's apartment.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Both boys were close acquaintances. They were buried together in the crawl space, and investigators believe that they were murdered the same day.
Oh.
On June 3rd, Gacy killed 17-year-old Michael Bonin, who
Oh
disappeared.
my god, this is so many.
We're not even that deep into it.
Dude.
Yeah. On June 3rd, Gacy killed 17-year-old Michael Bonin, who disappeared while traveling from Chicago to Waukegan. Gacy strangled Michael with a ligature and buried him under the spare bedroom. 10 days later, Gacy murdered 16-year-old William Carroll and buried him in the common grave in the crawl space.
Oh, they're starting to get really close to each other. He's just like on a spree.
Once his wife left the house, he was on his own to do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Right, he didn't have to hide anything anymore.
There was
Correct.
nobody in his way. He could do it whenever he wanted.
So 16-year-old James Hackinson phoned his family for the last time on August 5th, possibly from Gacy's home.
Oh.
James, his cause of death was suffocation, and he was buried beneath the crawl space with a 17-year-old boy named Rick Johnson, who was last seen alive on August 6th. July 26th, Gacy picked up an 18-year-old hitchhiker named David Cram. Now keep in mind, this is like a couple weeks before. And he offered David Cram a job at PDM.
Ugh.
David began working that same day. So on August 21st, after he killed those boys, David moved into Gacy's house. And the next day, David and Gacy had several drinks to celebrate David's 19th birthday, with Gacy dressed up as Pogo.
Oh, that's fucking weird. Oh, no, that's weird. One-on-one clown birthday party? Please no. Please no.
It's very weird, yes. Gacy,
I hate this.
Gacy conned David into donning handcuffs with his wrist cuffed in front of his body rather than behind him. Gacy then swung David around while holding the chains of the cuffs and said that he was going to rape him.
What the fuck?
David kicked Gacy in the face and freed himself.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
The guy's still living with him, doesn't leave.
What?
Yeah, doesn't leave, doesn't move out when he should have. A month later, Gacy appeared at David's bedroom door intending to rape him again, or attempt to rape him again. And he said to him, quote, "Dave, you really don't know who I am. Maybe it would be good if you just give me what I want," unquote.
Oh, God.
David resisted and ended up straddling Gacy, and then Gacy left the bedroom saying, quote, "You ain't no fun," unquote.
Really? That's what he took from that? Seriously?
Exactly. Gacy's fucked up.
Because that's all it is to him. That's people are toys.
That's very true. Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way. People are just big fucking toys for him.
Yeah, there's no humanity. He kills indiscriminately.
So David finally moved out on October 5th and left PDM, although he would periodically work for Gacy over the following 2 years.
What? Why?
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know, man. Maybe David Cram is also either gay or bisexual, and some of it he was into and some of it he wasn't. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how to
Or maybe
explain
he
it.
was destitute and like couldn't get a job for some other reason, and who knows?
That's probably more accurate, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering if he got paid, with all his problems with back pay and everything.
Well, I think that's his setup to get the victims to come to his house. He doesn't.
true.
He doesn't pay them, so they have to come to him. That's my guess.
Yeah.
at that.
It seems like a plan.
Diabolical.
So shortly after David moved out, another employee, an 18-year-old named Michael Rossi, moved in. Michael had worked for PDM since May of 76, and he would live with Gacy until April of 77. Michael sometimes assisted Gacy in his clowning. At grand openings of business, Gacy dressed as Pogo with Michael dressed as Patches.
Oh
Ugh,
my
that's just
God.
fucking weird. That's just weird.
Why am I picturing them, as the guys outside holding the sign saying, going out of business, wearing clown suits?
They're the ones spinning the signs for their taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
So on October 24th, 1976, Gacy abducted and killed teenage friends Kenneth Parker and Michael Marino. The two were last seen on Clark Street in Chicago. 2 days later, a 19-year-old construction worker named William Bundy disappeared after informing his family that he was going to a party.
Bundy.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
The
Yeah.
crossover
Whoa.
episode.
And there was Voorhees earlier.
Yeah, Jason Voorhees.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
I knew that name sounded familiar.
It's a shared universe. Between November and December of 76, Gacy murdered 21-year-old Francis Alexander. His last contact with his family was a phone call to his mother sometime that November, but he was not reported missing because his family believed that he had moved to California.
Oh, that's tough.
Wow.
Alexander was buried beneath the room that was used as Gacy's office. In December
How
of
big is his house?
It's not even that big. That's the crazy part. You got to picture a
It's
house, like picture the houses in the 50s and 60s where they're really only as big as like maybe a 3-car garage. Single story, no basement. It's crazy how small this is, and he's fitting all these bodies underneath. But
Right, and that he was even doing some of this shit while people were living in the house.
Correct. In December of 76, 17-year-old Gregory Godzik disappeared. His girlfriend last saw him outside her house. Gregory had worked at PDM for less than 3 weeks when he disappeared.
Man, they should be really putting some fucking things together about this company and people disappearing.
They should, but unfortunately, Chicago police during this time sucked balls. This kid had informed his family that Gacy had paid him to dig trenches for some kind of drain in his crawl space.
Oh God.
Oh,
That's
wow.
twisted that he had other people digging the freaking no.
Yeah,
Probably dug his own grave, literally.
quite literally, because he would tell them where to dig and how deep. So, like, in his mind, Gacy had already had it all organized. He knew where bodies were and he knew where the space was. Now, Gregory's car was later found abandoned, and his parents and older sister had contacted Gacy about his disappearance, and Gacy claimed that Gregory had expressed his wishes to run away. Yep.
Saw that coming.
He also claimed that he received an answering machine message from Gregory shortly after he disappeared, but when Gacy was asked to play that, he said he had erased it. He didn't still have it.
Sure.
On January 20th, 1977, Gacy lured 19-year-old John Zick to his house on the pretext of buying his Plymouth Satellite vehicle. He later confessed to strangling John Zick in his spare bedroom, claiming that Michael Rossi was asleep in the house when it happened.
Holy fuck.
You can't sleep through that. What?
Gacy would later sell this kid's car to Michael Rossi for $300.
Oh, that's
Oh
my
my
goodness.
god.
Shit.
In March of 77, Gacy became a supervisor for PE Systems, a firm specializing in the remodeling of drugstores. And this is a weird little linchpin in everything else falling apart for him. Between PE Systems and PDM, Gacy worked on up to 4 projects simultaneously and frequently traveled to other states. By 78, PDM's annual revenue was over $200,000, which in today's money is almost $1 million a year.
Wow.
Oh,
That's
damn.
pretty big business. He's clearly a businessman.
Yeah, he's clearly good at a lot of things, and some of them were good and some of them weren't. It's unfortunate that he couldn't put all his purpose into one path. So much of PDM's workforce, of course, consisted of high school students and young men. Gacy would often proposition his workers for sex or insist on sexual favors in return for lending them his vehicles, financial assistance, or for promotion.
Ugh, what a fucking predator.
Wow.
On March 15th, 20-year-old John Pendritz disappeared. John was last seen leaving a North Side restaurant, and unfortunately he was buried in the crawl space above the body of Francis Alexander.
Ugh.
He's literally stacking them on top of each other.
Oof.
Shortly before his disappearance, John Pendritz had mentioned that he had obtained work with a local contractor.
Insane.
Gacy murdered an unidentified youth and buried him in the crawl space in the spring or early summer of '77. On July 5th, Gacy killed 19-year-old Matthew Bowman. Matthew's mother last saw him at a suburban train station as he intended to travel to Harwood Heights for a court appointment. The following month, Michael Rossi was arrested for stealing gasoline while driving John Zick's car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this is getting
insane.
messy.
The gas station attendant noted the license plate, and police traced the car to Gacy's house. When questioned, Gacy told officers that John Zick had sold the car to him in February, saying that John Zick had needed money to leave town. So checking the VIN number confirmed that the car did belong to John Zick, but the police did not pursue the matter any further, although
Of course not.
they did tell John Zick's mother that their son had sold his car.
Sold his car to leave town? That doesn't make sense.
No, I guess it doesn't, no.
What did you need the car?
Well, no, you could get on a bus.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So after recording this, we realized that this went really late. It went longer than we wanted it to. So I know people hate when we do this, but we are going to have to break this into 2 episodes. So what we decided to do is, rather than make you wait an entire week for part 2, because this is our 1-year anniversary, we've decided to release the second part on the exact day that marks the 1-year anniversary from the first episode of Unsung Murder Ballads. So we will release the second part of this on Friday, so you only have to wait a couple days. And if you're one of those people who are binging, well, you don't have to wait any time at all anyway. So yes, thank you all for the 1 year that you've given us. We love each and every one of you. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
I'm Joyous Dead.
And I'm Shark Dead.
And we'll see you on Friday.
Bye.